All right. Hi there. I am here today and I'm going to start class number 2 for our adaptations, differentiation, and planning class. And we are using the book. Let me just make sure I'm sharing my screen. Differentiating Instruction and Assessment for English Language Learners. It is a great book for what we are going to accomplish in this class. All right? So let's get started. So last class we started talking about differentiation and what it meant. And so here I found this visual that I want to share with you today. So what is differentiation? So some of the things that come to mind are you need to know your learner first to be able to change your lesson plans and teach your students differently, right? Differentiation is the art of teaching your students with tailored content. Then assess your learner in a different way. Adjustable assignments. That can be done in many different ways. It can be the product, it can be the process of those assignments, and then having different questioning strategies, and then varying curriculum approaches as well. Right? I really like that visual. It's excellent for us. Now, why differentiated instruction? So classrooms are filled with students who have different needs. That's our first little girl right there on the left. Then we have come from different educational backgrounds. We also have students that have different attention spans and interests. We know that. And then we have students with different language abilities and different cultural backgrounds. We know that. That is part of our reality. But it's so hard to differentiate instruction for all learners. It takes so much of our time. It's so much work. We can do it. That's the most important part. So I'm gonna play this video here for you. It's defining differentiated instruction. So I'm gonna show you how to do stations to reach each individual student. This is a great example on how you can, have different things going on in the classroom and how everything can work if you are very purposeful in how you run your classroom. So let's watch this with me. All right.
Look at all these great volunteers. Go ahead. Yes, nice job. So the impact of differentiation, the students feel successful. They feel supported. They know if something is difficult for them, there's something that's a little more in line with their strengths coming up soon. So it really makes education fun and approachable. I really think it's the most effective way that I have seen to teach. Yay!
The vision and the mission of Highlander is to use innovative practice as a social catalyst. We want our kids to be able to do anything any other kid from Providence could do.
We use differentiation all across the curriculum here at Highlander, and especially in the first grade. Although the content is the same, having the stations really allows me to tailor my lessons to each individual group of learners. So how the differentiation looks in my classroom, we start off with a whole group lesson. So let's get our reading glasses on. Let's get the letter part of our brains activated. This section of our curriculum, we have been looking at nonfiction texts. When we're looking at our book today, we're going to be thinking about where we can get information. And then in the phonics realm, we focused on contractions. We're taking two words, and what are we sticking them together with? Apostrophe. Yes, Karen. And then we break off into our small groups. So our yellow group is still learning how to do a lot of our literacy things. The green group is doing pretty well, but has a few things to work on still. And our blue group is hitting all the first grade standards and needs to be stretched. So our differentiation kind of takes two forms. The first is by student grouping, and the second is by modality of learning. We have 20 minutes per station, and there are 3 of the stations. The students will rotate through all 3 stations each day.
So our first station for the blue group is the computer station.
The students use a Google form to check in. They'll normally watch a video or carefully observe a photograph and answer some questions about that.
We watched a video about how to grow a seed. We had to type in our favorite part and why.
After they finish that form, they can check out an ebook.
And then you could do this game of reading called Teacher Master How to Read.
We're delivering things in a way that is visual, that is auditory, that is individual to the students through the technology.
After that, she rings the bell.
Clean up, switch up, first grade readers.
We switch to the sort station.
Our sort station is more of a physical modality. They're using their bodies, which is so important for first graders. They need to move. Kids are cutting out the words. They're gluing them down.
We had a contrasting game. It's fun because it's all mixed up and you have to find the right pieces. And then after we do that, we do rainbow writing.
That's another way that we differentiate. If students are able to get through more work, then they have some freedom of choice. Clean up, switch it up. The last station, we're talking to each other and learning from each other. So that's more of a social interaction type of modality.
I like the teacher station the most because we get to view Miss Gallagher and we get to learn cool stuff.
So take a look at the illustrations on this page. Right? The content is the same, but it can be differentiated in a number of ways. My blue group, for example, they know what text is. They know what illustrations are. And so for them, I create a Venn diagram.
You need to make one circle like this, and then you make another circle overlapping.
Oh, for the yellow or the green group, I'm just leaving the Venn diagram out of it. We're still doing essentially the same thing, but just that piece that might be confusing to some of those students, I just leave that out for a later time. They'll get to it. All right, so clean up and meet me in the middle of the rug for writing. Nice work, first grade.
Being able to move through those stations, it's just another level of helping the students learn as much as they can each year. They really feel excited when they make that growth.
They're proud of themselves. They feel like they're effective learners. As a teacher, honestly, it is a lot of work, but the results that you see and the happy faces of the kids and the good feeling that you have in the classroom is worth it.
All right. Perfect. It's a very inspiring video because it really shows the kids engaged and doing their best and doing learning. And to think that they're only first graders, that was amazing. That was incredible. So just to, inspire you and give you some ideas on how it can be done. All right. Thank you for watching. That was great. All right, so I want to get us started a little bit on talking about our book, okay? So this book right here, the first chapter really talks about creating, a little bit of, access to, equity for ELLs. What the teacher can do, the teacher being a leader, collaborating for lesson planning, and using student data for, guiding your teaching. So those things I know you already know. So I'm gonna start with chapter 2 today, and I want us to just kind of talk about some of those topics that I want you to explore when you read chapter 2 and chapter 3 this week. All right, so I want you to think about, so if we go to page 25, so go ahead and open your books to page 25. Page 25, it's interesting to see how this class kind of combined with our social justice class kind of comes together. The first sentence on page 25 here is, of course, the title, Exploring Diversity Among English Language Learners, but it says, striving for social justice is the most valuable thing to do in life. And that's a quote from Albert Einstein. And it's true, because we really need to, value social justice and provide students with equitable opportunities to learn. So that's wonderful. We're going to talk here about, the first topic is cultural differences. So we need to make sure that when we're reading chapter 2, during your homework assignment, that you're thinking about cultural differences. Like, what are the cultural differences that your students come with, that English language learners come with, that you need to explore? So the title is Exploring Diversity. How can you use the cultural differences as assets for your classroom, right? It's wonderful. You have all the different languages and different levels of language. How can you make those differences like a rich, characteristic, a rich place for you to start your teaching? So that's a really good thing to think about. Now the book goes on, it talks about home visits. Now, have you ever done a home visit? If you have never done one, you should totally do that. And I want to know, if you want to know more about home visits, I want you to let me know, because I have a lot that I could bring about home visits. It is by far one of the most empowering experiences I've ever had in my life, is to go and visit a student, because it's such a special connection that you have with that person. When you step into that person's home, you connect with the child, you connect with the parents, and and the whole family, even the dog or the pets or whoever is in there. You might not even go in, but you're always part of that context once you take that leap, and it really shows that you care. So it might be one of the best things for you is to do a home visit. So home visits are on page, let me just find that for you. How come I don't know where the page is? Page 40. Now there's another topic that I want you to read about, is acculturation and language learning. So the chapter is going to talk about how sometimes we make students forget their first culture. So that shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't acculturate, right? We shouldn't lose our culture. We should add the culture. We should be learning two cultures at the same time. And that should be happening with the language learning. So you're gonna allow your students to use their first language, and you're gonna allow your students to bring their culture to the classroom, all right? And that brings us to the next topic on my list, which is language identity and power. Because identity is everything, and language and identity are connected, and power comes with your identity, and identity comes with your language, and everything is connected. So I really want you to be thinking about those topics as you read chapter 2, all right? And the last topic for chapter 2 is gathering information about your students. You need to know your students. You need to have data on them. You need to really, really, really know them. Are they immigrants? What's their status? And then there are some student scenarios that you can read about. There's like on page 35, Juan and David that you can know about, and other students like Laura and Daru, and there's other students that need special programs and for ELLs. So I really think that this chapter is excellent, that you're going to have a great reading experience. Now, have you heard of a cumulative folder that stays in the office at elementary school or middle school or high school? They have everything that you need to know about the child's schooling. So you should ask for that kind of information. The cumulative folder is what you should ask. And so you need to gather information about your student. That could be one of those things alongside with the home visit and, you know, other assessments you might have in the classroom. You might, you know, just call home and make other connections with the community, and so on and so forth. All right, awesome. Now, if you go to page 51, I want you to go to chapter 3. Chapter 3 is all about teaching content and language to diverse learners. Now, you're gonna teach your content, all right? But you have to teach language with the content, because guess what? If you only teach your content, your students won't learn anything, because they need to learn language with the content. Otherwise, they won't learn anything. They can't make that, you know, they can't translate and learn everything all together. So you're gonna have to facilitate that process. And guess what? It's not easy, but you got this, all right? So the first thing that talks about on page 51 is what is equity? Funny, again, it goes back to our other course, equity and social justice. Come on, right? What's going on? We're like, it's like the same class, but it's what we're talking about. It's equity, it's access, it's giving students what they need. So page 51 has the first quote be, what is equity? It says, it is the quality of citizens of a given society to relate to each other in fairness and impartiality. Isn't that right? So in this chapter, you're going to learn about placing students in age-appropriate grade levels, and also putting students at ease, and how, like, the affective filter, if a student is really nervous, he or she is not going to be able to learn. So you need to make sure that they feel really comfortable in the classroom. And you know that because you are a student too, and you know how that feels when you're not feeling comfortable to learn. So you don't learn when you don't feel good. So you need to make sure that you are feeling, you feel that student, and you know that that student is feeling great about learning. So that's something to think about. The next thing on this page is create student-centered assessment and instruction. It's not about you as a teacher, it's about the student. It's student-centered assessment and instruction. So the instruction is not about what the book is telling you to do. It's about what the student needs to learn and where the student is at. Differentiation and planning and adaptation, right? Now, the next one is use gradual, incremental scaffolding, and then leverage students' home languages and cultures for learning. Build on their home language, build on their culture so that they can learn English and the content, right? And then teach content and language. And this chapter is going to give you some examples on how to do that. So it's kind of cool. You can use the SIOP model. There's other different strategies. For example, GLAD is the guided language acquisition design model that combines content and language that we've been exploring for a while in class, that you know a little bit about. So that's great. So this chapter is also going to talk about that. So keep reading, keep exploring, and we're going to continue to talk about those things as we move along. All right? So to kind of wrap up today's lecture, I want you to be thinking about grouping structures for your class. And I know we've talked about this so many times. We've had activities to draw our classroom map and where things go, where the books go, and blah, blah, blah. I know that. But I cannot emphasize this enough. Differentiation for students, ELLs, or students with disabilities, or students with any need. Grouping structure is everything. So I'm going to read this to you. So it says, teachers can use flexible grouping structures to differentiate instruction to meet the needs of the diverse learners in their classroom. Different structures include whole group, small group, teams, partners, and individuals. Using flexible grouping structures allows the teacher to provide slightly different experiences with different outcomes. When teachers plan flexible groups, they consider the strengths and weaknesses of each grouping approach and then use a combination to best meet the needs of each student. So I found this cute little picture online, and I thought that was like, oh yeah, that's great. Some kids are reading with a partner, some kids are in a small group, and the teacher is going around the classroom. Well, there's one like on the window, but hey, on the windowsill, but hey, sometimes we just need a little break, right? I knew that would make you smile. Now, the next thing is scaffolding. We talk about this word all the time. Scaffolding is another approach to addressing the needs of all learners to provide varying levels of support, right? Scaffolded instruction is the systematic sequencing of prompted content, materials, tasks, and teacher and peer support to optimize learning. Scaffolding is a process in which students are given support until they can apply new skills and strategies independently. So scaffolding is you're helping them get through the process of going up the ladder until they are comfortable on their own. It goes back to the affective filter that we just talked about, that chapter 3 is going to explore in so much detail. All right. Now, hopefully you're not working on your own in the classroom. You're hopefully having the help of a paraprofessional and one or more. Hopefully, you know, you have volunteers, parent volunteers too. So it's important for you to clarify those roles and responsibilities of the paraeducator and know what your role is. So keep some things like assigned. For example, who keeps the records? So record keeping is important. Supervising, monitoring seat work, monitoring classroom behavior, feeding and going to the bathroom, supporting instruction, developing schedules and you know, for the para, who does that? And the most important thing, communicate with that person in your classroom. There's nothing worse than not communicating with that person, right? And then use problem-solving strategies. Have that paraprofessional help you and solve problems together, right? But be organized. Monitor seat work. Monitor classroom behavior. You know, who's going to the bathroom, when, and who's teaching what. Use that help as you can. And then collaborate with families, parents and families. Communicate about homework. Be sensitive about, you know, the family structure and their background. And sometimes resolve disagreements with them. Sometimes you don't understand things and you don't understand something. Try to communicate effectively. And sometimes there's disabilities, right? The student has a disability, so help parents and families cope with disability issues. And you are working to help that family and that student, so do the best you can. Collaborate with them is key. All right. And so that's it for me. I hope that you enjoyed this class. And I'm uploading your assignment to class number 2 on Canvas. And I hope to see you soon. Have a great week. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.